Europe in 2025 stands at a crossroads. 3 years ago, the unimaginable happened. Russia, under the iron fist of Vladimir Putin, launched a full-scale invasion of its sovereign neighbor, Ukraine. The world watched in horror as a nation was plunged into the abyss of war. The initial shockwaves were felt globally. Images of smoldering cities and fleeing refugees dominated news cycles. The spectre of a major conflict returning to the European continent after decades of relative peace sent shivers down the spines of many. The world held its breath, hoping against hope for a swift resolution. 3 years on, the conflict grinds on, a bloody stalemate that has reshaped the geopolitical landscape. The question that haunts Europe now is not if the war will end, but how. And more importantly, what will the continent look like in the aftermath of a Russian victory? The situation on the ground in Ukraine is dire, despite the valiant efforts of Ukrainian forces and the unwavering support of international allies. Russia's military might has slowly but surely ground down Ukrainian defenses. The once optimistic talk of repelling the invasion and liberating occupied territories has given way to grim pronouncements of protracted conflict and inevitable defeat. The human cost of this war is staggering. Thousands of innocent civilians have been caught in the crossfire, their lives shattered by indiscriminate shelling and brutal urban warfare. Millions more have been displaced from their homes, forced to flee the fighting and seek refuge in neighboring countries. The Ukrainian spirit, however, remains unbroken. Ordinary citizens have taken up arms to defend their homeland, displaying a level of courage and resilience that has inspired the world. But even the bravest heart cannot withstand the relentless onslaught of artillery barrages and armored divisions forever. The world watches with bated breath as the Ukrainian front line slowly crumbles, bracing for the inevitable, a Russian victory. The fall of Ukraine would send shockwaves far beyond the borders of the war-torn nation. It would mark a turning point in European history, ushering in an era of profound geopolitical instability. Russia, emboldened by its victory, would emerge as the undisputed hegemon of Eastern Europe, its shadow looming large over the continent. The Baltic states, once part of the Soviet Union and now members of NATO, would find themselves on the front lines of a new Cold War. Their independence, hard-won and fiercely protected, would be under direct threat from a resurgent and revanchist Russia. The prospect of a direct military confrontation between Russia and NATO, while unthinkable just a few years ago, would become a terrifying reality. The delicate balance of power that has maintained a fragile peace in Europe for decades would be shattered, replaced by an atmosphere of fear, suspicion, and the ever-present threat of escalation. The consequences of a Russian victory in Ukraine extend far beyond the immediate geographical region. It would signal to the world that aggression is rewarded and that the rules-based international order is nothing more than a flimsy facade. The ramifications of a Ukrainian defeat are particularly chilling when considering the security implications for Europe. With Russia having achieved its objective of subjugating Ukraine, the very foundation of European security architecture would be irrevocably shaken. The spectre of a militarily assertive and expansionist Russia, no longer constrained by international norms or the threat of meaningful consequences, would become a haunting reality for the continent. NATO, once a symbol of unity and strength, would face its greatest test since its inception. The alliance's eastern flank, stretching from the Baltic Sea to the Black Sea, would become a potential flashpoint for conflict. The need to bolster defenses, deploy additional troops, and increase military spending would become paramount. However, the unity of purpose and resolve that characterized NATO's response to the initial invasion of Ukraine might prove elusive in the face of a resurgent Russia. The economic and social costs of such a massive military buildup, coupled with the ever-present threat of conflict, would weigh heavily on European societies. Section 5. Economic shockwaves, energy and beyond. The economic consequences of a Russian victory in Ukraine would be profound and far-reaching, reverberating throughout the global economy. Europe, heavily reliant on Russian energy exports, particularly natural gas, would find itself in a precarious position. Russia, having demonstrated its willingness to weaponize energy supplies, would hold immense leverage over European economies. The potential for energy blackmail, with Russia manipulating gas flows to exert political pressure, would cast a long shadow over the continent. The economic fallout would not be limited to the energy sector. Trade relationships, already strained by sanctions and the conflict, would be further disrupted. The interconnectedness of the global economy means that the economic shockwaves would be felt far beyond Europe's borders. The cost of living would skyrocket as energy prices soar, impacting households and businesses alike. The fragile economic recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic would be derailed, plunging the world into a period of economic uncertainty and instability. Section 6, a continent on the move, the refugee crisis. The human toll of a Russian victory in Ukraine would be immeasurable. Millions of Ukrainians displaced from their homes by the fighting would face a bleak future. Many would become refugees seeking safety and shelter in neighboring countries. This mass exodus of people would place an enormous strain on the resources and infrastructure of host nations. The European Union, already grappling with the challenges of integrating previous waves of refugees, would be faced with an unprecedented humanitarian crisis. The social and political ramifications of such a large-scale influx of refugees would be significant. The rise of anti-immigrant sentiment, fueled by economic anxieties and cultural differences, could exacerbate social tensions within host countries. The very fabric of European societies, built on principles of tolerance and diversity, would be put to the test. The international community would be compelled to respond to this humanitarian catastrophe. However, the scale of the crisis, coupled with the political complexities of providing aid and resettlement, would pose a significant challenge. Section 7. The European Union, a united front. The crisis unfolding in Ukraine has tested the very core of the European Union. The initial response, marked by a remarkable display of unity and resolve, saw the bloc impose unprecedented sanctions on Russia and provide significant military and humanitarian aid to Ukraine. However, as the conflict has dragged on, cracks have begun to appear in the EU's united front. Differing national interests, historical ties with Russia, and concerns over the economic fallout from the conflict have led to disagreements over the best course of action. The energy crisis, exacerbated by the conflict, has exposed the EU's dependence on Russian gas and highlighted the challenges of achieving energy security. The debate over further sanctions, particularly on Russian energy exports, has revealed deep divisions within the bloc. The outcome of the war in Ukraine will have profound implications for the future of the European Union. A Russian victory would embolden those who seek to weaken the bloc and undermine European integration. It would also raise fundamental questions about the EU's ability to act decisively and effectively in the face of a major geopolitical crisis. Section 8, the price of apathy, a call to action. As the world watches the tragedy in Ukraine unfold, it is imperative to remember that this is not merely a regional conflict with localized consequences. The outcome of this war will have profound implications for the future of Europe, the rules-based international order, and the very principles of democracy and self-determination. Apathy, indifference, or a failure to act decisively will come at a steep price. A Russian victory would embolden autocrats and dictators around the world, signaling that aggression and the use of force are acceptable tools of foreign policy. It is our collective responsibility to stand in solidarity with the people of Ukraine, who are fighting not only for their own freedom, but for the very values that underpin a just and peaceful world order. We must continue to provide Ukraine with the military, economic and humanitarian assistance it needs to resist Russian aggression. We must hold Russia accountable for its actions, both on the battlefield and in the international arena, and we must remain vigilant against the forces of division and disinformation that seek to undermine our unity and resolve. Section 9. Hope amidst the ruins. Despite the grim realities on the ground, it is essential to remember that, even in the darkest of times, hope must not be extinguished. The Ukrainian people, through their courage, resilience, and unwavering belief in their right to self-determination, have inspired the world. Their struggle is a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit in the face of adversity. The international community, united in its condemnation of Russian aggression, has demonstrated that even in a world often defined by self-interest, there is still a place for solidarity and a commitment to shared values. The path ahead will be long and arduous. The consequences of this war will be felt for generations to come. But even as we brace for the challenges that lie ahead, let us draw inspiration from the courage of the Ukrainian people and the unwavering support of those who stand with them. The fight for freedom, democracy, and a just and peaceful world order is a fight worth fighting, and it is a fight that we must win.